The same year, 2009, Twitter came onto the scene in various ways. One of them was through the Iran elections, which were another moment where we imagined the potential of technology and did so much better than actually evidencing that potential. We won't really know what Twitter's influence was in the Iran elections, or at least we don't at this point. But the claims were there. They were popularized by various people. And what became difficult is separating out those stories about the internet from the reporting of those stories. A good example here is Stephen Fry, who over the last couple of years has been a real advocate for Twitter in particular. It was in the top 10 Twitter accounts for quite a while. You see him on any press coverage on any TV over the last couple of years. He's got his telephone. He's often talking about Twitter. Now, to that extent, Stephen Fry is sort of emblematic of this problem of divorcing new media from traditional media. There's clearly an interrelation, an interdependence there that's going on. The reporting of the internet becomes inextricable from its impact. And I think that's, again, what we need to try to address as academics. A history of the media reporting of the internet is one interesting area. So, final year, 2010, the Winter Olympic Games started in February. We see all sorts of resistance. This is really the culmination of my work on new media cultures in the Olympics, having worked with people in Vancouver for 6 years to try to generate a new media culture that would allow the telling of stories like this, the Olympic Resistance Network that we're protesting throughout the Games. You will have missed it. No one covered it here in the UK. Some of the press covered it a little bit, but actually not very much. So no one was talking about these stories, like the Olympic tent village, which was set up in a vacant lot in downtown Eastside Vancouver, where the homeless were staying because they had nowhere to go. And often what happens with these events is they get kicked out of the city. Well, they set up and pitched their tents here and had people tell their stories. But if you're outside of Canada, you'd have no awareness of this, unless you were following Twitter. It's the first Games where we saw the DIY media pass. So no longer did you have to apply for accreditation to get this and be somebody. You could be anybody. You've got this template, you print it out, you laminate it, put a lanyard around your neck, and hey presto, you're media. And you can get into venues with it. This was beginning to happen. People were actually inventing their own media entities and claiming that entitlement to have access to the privileges that it generates. At the same time, just last month, again, the promise of technology was emerging. A film I've written a couple of things about, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a film that deals with the prospect of erasing memories. Could this be possible? In 2010, just last month, the Nature published an article that revealed the first research to create new memories. And so we see again that synergy of the cultural text and the scientific development. How can these things be brought closer together? So just to conclude, and maybe bring to some sort of conclusion the digital side of things, some of you will have phones that already have this facility, but the idea of digital technology giving rise to augmented realities, worlds where we are not just going around with our cameras, but phones telling us where things are, helping us navigate the world around us, are now part of our mobile experience. This mobile culture that we now inhabit is beginning to show us how digital culture may be changed in the future. Not many people are using augmented reality to find things at this point, but it's the promise of it and the implementation of it, which is now available to many mobile phone users, is suggesting how it might change our experience of negotiating space. That intersection of the physical and the virtual was again made manifest in applications like this that are revealing information about what's going on in the world around us. This, I think, is an extension of that idea of us becoming cyborgs and us becoming posthuman. The idea that we're wrestling with new forms of communication, new forms of expression, the creation of new communities that operate by different forms of language and that imply different sets of assumptions about those relationships we have for others was an integral part of this. So that's the 10 years, that's the decade. I don't know whether you feel that these two revolutions, whether that word revolution is justified, whether you think much has changed at all, whether your experience of these worlds is so far removed that in fact you have yet to discover it. And I think one of the challenges is when we think about a revolution, what do we expect of that term? both the digital and the biological have gone through a number of revolutions. How do you pinpoint one particular era, or indeed one decade, as being the most significant? I suspect that the last decade was no more or less significant than the ones before it, and certainly the ones that follow. But what was apparent is the reconfiguration of our cells, of our biology, and the experimentation that people were willing to undertake through both digital and biological. And with that, I will leave you there. Thanks very much.